when cooperation between the Nationalist Party and the Communist Party collapsed and a border civil war began. The Nationalist government army had a strength of approximately 4.3 million men and was provided with the latest weaponry by the United States. In contrast, the Communist Party army numbered only about 1.27 million and was poorly equipped. In other words, the Nationalist Party had an overwhelming advantage in terms of military strength. When the battle actually began, the Nationalist Party forces began to attack the Communist Party forces. In such a situation, Mao Zedong decided to fight a protracted battle. This is the same tactic he used in his war against Japan. Mao Zedong hoped to turn the tide of the war by prolonging the fighting. Mao Zedong divided the upcoming battle into 3 stages. The first stage is when the Nationalist Party goes on the offensive and the Communist Party goes on the defensive. The second stage is when the two sides' powers are in balance. The third stage is when the Nationalist Party goes on the defensive and the Communist Party goes into rebellion. It was thought that the Nationalist Party's dominance in the first stage could not be easily changed. Therefore, the Communist Party must first focus on defense. Therefore, the Communist Party felt it was necessary to temporarily abandon some provinces and cities. With this in mind, Mao Zedong began preparations to abandon Yan'an. It was a bold decision, as this was the Communist Party's headquarters. However, simply focusing on defense will not allow you to move on to the second stage. The Communist Party sought to take advantage of the widespread discontent with the nationalist government throughout the country. He wanted to turn the tide by getting as many people on his side as possible. The Nationalist Party government concluded a treaty with the United States, which continued to provide support. That is the Sino-American Treaty of Friendship, Commerce, and Navigation. This treaty established friendly and trade relations between the two countries. Formally, it was about building an equal relationship. However, at that time, there was a huge difference in economic power between China and the United States. If economic activities are conducted on equal terms, the United States will have an overwhelming advantage. The treaty was criticized by many Chinese people, including the Chinese business community, as accelerating the influx of American products into China. Dissatisfaction with the nationalist government grew even more. Despite this political isolation, the Nationalist Party continued to increase pressure on the Communist Party. Finally, the nationalist government forced the enactment of a constitution. The Communist Party and some moderate parties say this goes against the agreement reached at the Political Consultative Conference. The Nationalist Party refused to sit at the conference, claiming it was trying to maintain a one-party system. Nevertheless, the nationalist government proceeded with the conference and unilaterally adopted the Constitution of the Republic of China. There were also money-related problems in China at this time. During the war, the coastal areas of China were occupied by the Japanese army. As a result, a unique currency issued by the Japanese military was in circulation in the region. Naturally, the nationalist government would not accept money made by the Japanese military. Our currency is the legitimate currency. Japan's currency is not worth that much. Thinking along these lines, the nationalist government set the exchange rate at 200 yuan for every 1 yuan made by the nationalist government. China insisted to Japan that it would exchange at this rate. In actual transactions, 1 yuan of money created by the nationalist government was exchanged for 35 to 50 yuan of money created by the Japanese military. The rates set by the nationalist government were far from reality. As a result, various problems arose. For example, suppose 1 yuan of Nationalist Party money circulating in the inland area flows into the coastal area. This means that 200 yuan has been brought in, which will cause inflation to rise rapidly. Suppose goods from the coast flow into the inland area. They were cheap and of good quality, so they sold well. If this happens, producers in the inland areas will no longer be able to sell their goods. As a result, China's economy gradually deteriorated. Serious problems also arose over the seizure of production facilities that had been managed by Japan. Thanks to us, the people in the interior who continued to resist Japan were able to defeat it. So the factory insisted that we take over. In contrast, we were the people in the coastal areas occupied by Japan who actually worked in the factories. In other words, we are the ones who know how to operate the machine. This was how they argued, and conflict arose between them. The Nationalist government, troubled by this, decided to take on the responsibility of government management and operation for the time being. There will be strong complaints from both sides. In Manchuria, the Soviet army removed major production facilities and took them back. This made it difficult to produce goods, dealing a major blow to economic activity as a whole. These economic policy failures have plunged China into chaos. China is facing serious inflation, with shortages of goods and rising prices. In order to counter the Communist Party, the Nationalist Party continued to issue new currency and increase military spending. As a result, inflation will worsen. By the time the nationalist government realized the seriousness of the situation, it was already too late. Once inflation began, it was difficult to contain it, and prices continued to rise without any effective measures being taken. Such economic policy failures have led to a great loss of public confidence in the nationalist government. People gradually began to support the Communist Party. Meanwhile, a dispute broke out in Taipei, Taiwan, between a woman selling cigarettes and government officials who were cracking down on tax-abated goods. As the people present became confused, an official opened fire on the crowd, killing one citizen. This was the beginning of what would later be known as the February 28th incident. This incident prompted large-scale protests by the people who were dissatisfied with the nationalist government. The wave of protests quickly spread across Taiwan, and the incident became so major that the military was called in. As a result, the military was deployed in Taiwan and severe repression was carried out, escalating into a serious conflict with many casualties. As the Nationalist Party lost support from the people, the Communist Party continued to put up fierce resistance. Gradually the situation began to escalate. The transition from the first to the second phase of Mao Zedong's operation was beginning. In response to this situation, Chiang Kai-shek was forced to change his strategy from an all-out offensive to a focused offensive. The Nationalist Party chose to focus its attacks on Yan'an, the Communist Party's headquarters, in southern Shandong province, near the capital, Nanjing. In response, the Communist Party withdrew from Yan'an, which had been its base for about 10 years. From then on, Communist Party officials, including Mao Zedong, fought multiple battles, luring the Nationalist Party forces into the mountainous regions. They aimed to weaken the Nationalist Party's fighting forces. As the Nationalist Party army expanded its front lines in this way, it also expanded its territory and was forced to disperse its forces. This would create areas that were weakly defended, and the Communist Party would concentrate their forces there and launch a counterattack. As the Nationalist Party's forces expanded their control, they were forced into a situation where their troop strength was reduced. The Communist Party forces have increased in number as a result of reducing the area under their control. In this way, the war situation gradually became deadlocked and the forces of both sides became equal. The transition to the second stage envisaged by Mao Zedong has been completed. In the second phase, the Communist Party launched a large-scale offensive in the Tohoku region. The Communist Party dealt a blow to the Nationalist Party forces and isolated Nationalist Party strongholds in the major cities of Changchun and Shenyang. Thus, the battle was moving from the second to the third stage, the Communist Party's period of rebellion. The Communist Party cannot rebuild the country with a nationalist government. Let's establish a democratic coalition government. The Communist Party won widespread democratic support by calling for land reform to improve people's lives. To demonstrate its determination to liberate the people from old rule, the Communist Party army began calling itself the People's Liberation Army. Finally, the Communist Party began a full-scale counterattack against the Nationalist Party.